This was a massive spot to be in for such a young talent, to have a sold-out crowd completely behind her, down at points. Jimmy,
Roger Federer just exposed Eala, and the tennis world is still trying to process what happened in Abu Dhabi. What started as an exhibition match turned into a media firestorm when Federer made a statement nobody saw coming. A 22-year-old rising star, an all-time legend, and one controversial moment that sparked thousands of reactions across the globe. This isn't just about tennis anymore. This is about truth. Abu Dhabi has always been a stage for tennis glamour. The Mubadala World Tennis Championship, where legends come to play, where the atmosphere is electric, and where exhibition matches often become more memorable than Grand Slam finals. December 2025, the lineup was stacked. Federer, now officially retired from competitive play, had agreed to participate in a special mixed exhibition series designed to bridge generations of tennis talent. It was supposed to be a celebration, a passing of the torch, a moment where the old guard would inspire the new. And then Eala's name appeared on the roster. For those unfamiliar, Eala is the Philippines' brightest tennis export. At just 22 years old, she had already won a Grand Slam junior title, broken into the WTA Top 150, and become a national icon. Her journey from Manila to the global stage was nothing short of inspirational. Sponsorships poured in, magazine covers followed. She was being called the future of Asian tennis. But with that spotlight came pressure. Immense pressure, the kind that can either forge a champion or crack someone open. Her inclusion in the Abu Dhabi exhibition raised questions. She wasn't a top 50 player, she hadn't won a WTA title yet. Some insiders whispered that her spot was more about marketability than merit. Others defended it, saying exhibitions are meant to showcase rising stars. Either way, expectations were mixed. Fans were excited, critics were skeptical. And Federer? He said nothing publicly. Not yet. The event organizers hyped the matchup. Federer and Eala were scheduled to play a fun, lighthearted mixed doubles match alongside other pros. It was meant to be casual, entertaining, low stakes, but anyone who knows tennis knows this. Put a competitor on a court and something inside them ignite. Federer, even in retirement, still played with precision, still moved with grace, still expected a certain standard. And Eala, she was hungry to prove she belonged on that stage. The energy in the arena that night was palpable. Fans filled the seats, phones ready to capture every moment. Social media buzzed with anticipation. This was supposed to be a feel-good story, a moment where generations collided in the spirit of sport. But sometimes the script gets rewritten in real time. And nobody, not the organizers, not the fans, not even Federer himself, knew what was about to unfold. But first, let's talk about what actually went down on that court. The match started exactly as expected. Smiles, warm-ups, a few jokes exchanged at the net. Federer looked relaxed, moving with that effortless elegance that defined his career. Eala seemed focused, perhaps a little nervous, but determined to make an impression. The first few games were smooth. Rallies were clean. The crowd cheered. Everything felt normal. But then something shifted. It started small, a missed call that Eala questioned. Nothing unusual. Players do it all the time. But her reaction lingered a bit too long. Federer glanced over, said something brief, and play continued. A few points later, another moment. Eala hit a shot that landed just wide, but she looked at the line judge with visible frustration. Again, Federer noticed. This time his expression changed, just slightly. A tightness around the eyes, the kind of look that says, "I'm watching." By the middle of the second set, the tone had shifted entirely. Eala was playing well, maybe too well for an exhibition. She was going for winners, challenging calls, celebrating points with intensity that felt out of place for what was supposed to be a friendly event. The crowd started to murmur. Was she taking this too seriously, or was she just competing the way she knew how? Federer, meanwhile, stayed calm, but those who know him could see it. The subtle shake of the head, the quiet word to his partner. He wasn't angry, but he was observing, taking mental notes. And then came the moment that would later be dissected frame by frame across social media. Eala hit a forehand down the line that Federer barely missed. She pumped her fist, shouted, and turned to her side of the court with fire in her eyes. It was the kind of celebration you'd see at Roland Garros, at Wimbledon, not at a December exhibition in Abu Dhabi. Federer paused, walked slowly back to the baseline, and for just a second, he looked directly at her. Not with malice, but with something else. Disappointment, maybe. Or concern. The match ended without incident. Handshakes at the net, polite applause, but something felt off. The energy had soured. Fans noticed, commentators noticed, and when the post-match interview was announced, everyone tuned in, expecting the usual pleasantries. They got anything but. What Federer said next would send shockwaves through the entire tennis world. And the backlash? It came fast, it came loud, and it came from every direction. Social media became a battlefield. Within hours, hashtags like Team Eala and Federer was right were trending globally. Tennis Twitter, notorious for its hot takes, went into overdrive. Some users posted clips of Eala's celebrations, analyzing every fist pump, every glance, every moment of intensity. Others dug up old interviews, where she talked about the pressure of representing an entire country, the weight of expectations, the struggle to break through on the WTA tour. She's 22 years old, and Roger Federer just humiliated her on international television. One viral tweet read, "This is why young players burn out." But the opposing side was just as loud. Federer didn't humiliate anyone. He told the truth. She acted like she was playing for a Grand Slam when it was just an exhibition. That's called lacking awareness. Tennis analysts swayed in. Former players took sides. Martina Navratilova posted a measured response, saying that while Federer's words were blunt, they came from a place of experience. Chris Evert suggested that the intensity of the moment might have been misread, but others, particularly younger voices in the sport, felt Federer had crossed a line. Legends have a responsibility. One WTA player tweeted anonymously, "You don't build someone up by tearing them down publicly." Eala's team scrambled. Her coach released a statement saying she had nothing but respect for Roger Federer, and that she competed with the passion that has brought her this far. Her management agency posted a highlight reel of her career achievements, subtly pushing back against the narrative that she wasn't ready for big stages. But Eala herself stayed silent. For 3 days, she didn't post, didn't comment, didn't appear publicly, and that silence only fueled more speculation. Was she devastated, angry, embarrassed? Or was she regrouping, preparing a response that would shift the conversation? Meanwhile, Federer faced his own wave of criticism. Some accused him of punching down, of using his legendary status to belittle someone still finding her way. Others questioned whether he would have said the same thing about a male player. Gender dynamics entered the conversation. Privilege, power, the responsibility of icon. And then, just when it seemed the story couldn't get more complicated, new information surfaced. Because what happened behind the scenes was far more complex than anyone realized. It turns out, there was a private conversation before the match that nobody knew about. A source close to the Federer camp leaked a detail that changed everything. Apparently, Federer had spoken to Eala in the locker room, encouraging her to see the exhibition as a chance to relax and show her personality, not just her forehand. He'd seen her recent matches, the ones where she looked tight, stressed, burdened by the pressure of winning. He wanted her to breathe. But Eala, perhaps misinterpreting the advice, or perhaps just too driven to switch off, went the opposite direction. She saw the match as an audition, a chance to prove to Federer, to the world, that she was serious. It was a classic misunderstanding, fueled by the generational gap and the different pressures they faced. Federer, secure in his legacy, could afford to be playful. Eala, still fighting for hers, felt she couldn't. This context added layers to the story. It wasn't just arrogance versus intensity. It was security versus hunger. It was the privilege of having made it versus the desperation of trying to make it. And suddenly Federer's public comments looked less like an attack and more like frustration. Frustration that his message hadn't landed. Frustration that the joy of the game was being lost in the grind for result. Then, on day 4, Eala finally broke her silence. She posted a single photo on Instagram. No caption, no lengthy explanation. Just a picture of her on the court in Abu Dhabi. Looking focused, determined, intense, and in the corner of the frame, blurred but visible, Roger Federer looking on. The message was subtle but clear. I am who I am. I compete, I care, and I won't apologize for it. The post garnered thousands of likes, comments of support from fellow players, from fans back in the Philippines, from people who saw themselves in her struggle. It was a quiet act of defiance. A refusal to be defined by someone else's narrative, even if that someone was Roger Federer. But the story didn't end there, because tennis, for all its drama, has a way of bringing people back together. A few weeks later, at another event, Federer and Eala crossed paths again. The cameras weren't rolling this time. There were no microphones, just two athletes in a hallway. Witnesses say they spoke for a few minutes. Nobody knows exactly what was said, but they shook hands. They smiled, and when Federer walked away, he looked thoughtful. Maybe he realized that the fire he saw in her was the same fire he had at 20. Maybe he remembered what it was like to feel like every point mattered, like every match was life or death. And maybe, just maybe, he respected her for standing her ground. The fallout continued to ripple through the season. Eala's ranking improved. She started winning matches she used to lose. The Federer incident, as it came to be known, seemed to have unlocked something in her. Instead of breaking her, it hardened her resolve. She played with a chip on her shoulder, a new edge to her game. Commentators noticed. "She's playing angry," one said during a match in Dubai. "She's playing like she has something to prove." And she did. She had to prove that she belonged, not just as a prospect, but as a contender. As for Federer, he continued his exhibition tour, charming crowds, hitting tweeners, reminding everyone why they loved him. But the Abu Dhabi moment stuck to him, a rare blemish on a perfect reputation. It reminded people that even idols have opinions, biases, blind spots. It humanized him in a way that 20 Grand Slams never could. And what about the fans? The debate never really died down. It just evolved. It became a touchstone for discussions about sportsmanship, about the unwritten rules of tennis, about how we treat young athletes, especially young women from non-traditional tennis nations. It forced people to confront their own biases. Why is intensity praised in some players and criticized in others? Why is having fun a requirement for women, while men are allowed to be stoic, angry, even rude? The Eala-Federer clash became a case study, a Rorschach test for how you view the sport. Months later, in an interview with a Filipino sports magazine, Eala was asked about that night in Abu Dhabi. She took a deep breath, looked the interviewer in the eye and said, "It was the hardest night of my career, but it was also the most important, because it forced me to decide who I was playing for. Was I playing for Roger Federer's approval, or was I playing for myself?" And once I answered that, everything got easier. It was a mature answer, a champion's answer. It showed that she had taken the criticism, processed it and used it to grow. She hadn't let it define her. She had used it to refine her. Looking back, that exhibition match in Abu Dhabi wasn't just a blip on the calendar, it was a pivot point. For Alex Eala, it was the moment she stopped being a promising young talent and started becoming a professional. For Roger Federer, it was a reminder that his words carry weight, heavy weight, and that even in retirement, he shapes the game. And for the tennis world, it was a wake-up call, a reminder that the future of the sport isn't just about forehands and backhands. It's about personalities, conflicts, stories. It's about the friction between generations, the tension between tradition and ambition. It's about the messy, beautiful, human reality of striving for greatness. This wasn't just about one match in Abu Dhabi. It was about the clash between generations, the weight of expectations, and the fine line between mentorship and public criticism. Roger Federer saw something in Alex Eala that concerned him, and he said it out loud. Whether that was the right move is still up for debate. But one thing is certain, both of them walked away from this moment changed. Eala learned a hard lesson about balance, about knowing when to fight and when to breathe. Federer reminded the world that even legends can spark controversy when they speak their truth. And the rest of us, we got a front row seat to one of the most emotionally charged moments in recent tennis history. If you made it this far, you're part of the story now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because tennis drama never stops, and neither do we. See you in the next one.